What is going on? We have a super cool, very special Mezcal chat tonight featuring our amigo Steve Sanchez from, oh man, he's got a long username. Farming Agave in California or something like that. But we've actually live streamed with him before. And the dude was awesome. The dude was phenomenal. We learned so much. And we were just beyond the moon. Like, he actually got us into collecting and growing agave. And like about every week or so, we're asking him questions. What kind of agave is this? We're asking him, where can we get this type of agave? Can you make mezcal? Can you make distilled spirits with this agave? So we are beyond excited to have him here. We are just gonna wait a couple minutes to see when he comes on. Let's see, we've got 2 viewers. How are you guys doing tonight? It's a Thursday. We do have our copita, and we do have 2 bottles, one of mezcal, and one is a very special surprise. It is not mezcal, and it is not tequila. So I'm very, very excited to feature that on here. How is everybody? Buenas noches, good evening, good afternoon. If you're watching this on the other side of the world, good morning. We've got a very awesome chat today. Thank you guys for jumping on early. Just some updates from our end is we're just creating a lot more content. We are going to be in Napa, California, which is Northern California, on Sunday to meet Lucas. He's like one of the most famous bartenders on social media right now. We're partnering with a restaurant to feature a few mezcal brands, and that'll be exciting. Oh, looks like we have our Lucas, Eduardo Lucas, ¿cómo estás? Buenas noches, amigo. Buenas tardes. We have our amigo Steve. Let's bring him on board. Let's see.
What's up,
Steve,
dude? How you doing?
amigo, how are you doing?
Good, man. Can you hear me
I
good?
can hear you good. I can see you good, and we're gonna vibe good here in a second.
That's what's up, man.
Well, I hope you're not driving because I was trying to break bread with you with this very very exclusive mezcal. It is a 10
Nice.
agave blend.
Oh shit, that's dope.
So
No, I'm not
yeah, this.
driving, man. I'm fucking on a farm I'm working at, just fucking planting agave.
Oh my god. Oh man, we're just gonna jump right in, brother. Oh, what kind of agave?
A whole bunch of stuff, man. Fucking got like 10 species out here.
Oh damn. Damn.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm just gonna ask the first question right away because man, this question has been bugging me for a very long time. Okay. If I grow an espadin next to a tobala or any other different agaves, will the hijuelos create a hybrid, or how do you create these hybrids?
Um. Well, they'd have to grow next to each other and bloom, you know. So if you get them to bloom right next to each other and at the same time, that's when you'd have the potential to hybridize. But that's pretty tough because a lot of them are at different years, right? So if you have a 10-year agave and a 7-year one, most of the time they're not going to time together. That's why it's nice to plant a whole bunch of different stuff of different sizes so that you have that potential, right? Because if you plant, for instance, a giant Americana and then some faster growing species, they might line up, right? But then if you're planting the same species and it's going to be harder to line up hybridizations.
My
But yeah,
gosh.
once you have them at the same time blooming, you can isolate portions of their blooms with like bags or plastic wraps, and then
Okay.
you hand pollinate in between the two of
Okay.
them. Because if nature does it, it's going to create hybrids that are kind of unintentional with everything that's around.
All right, time out.
Which would
For
be good
the
too.
non-agave experts, non-agave farmers out there, like myself, when you say bloom, do you mean like the hijuelos or like the quiote with the flowers?
No, it has to be the quiote at the end of its
Okay.
life.
Okay.
Yeah, and then those flowers have to be already open. So, what happens usually in nature is like there'll be natural hybrids, right? Like there's an Americana called lemon lime Americana, and then that's a natural hybrid between Americana and Asperima, just in the wild, right? So wherever two agave species naturally are meeting, then they can have a natural hybrid, right? So we kind of try to learn off of nature and try to hybridize them like that as well. But in the wild, it's usually bats that are, the cross pollinators. Whereas in California, we don't really have a lot of that bat population that they have in Mexico, so you have to hand pollinate them.
Oh man, so it's timing is everything because you got like
Yeah.
Tepextate, which takes decades, and then you got like an Espadín. So like to get that timing
That's
would be
what I was saying. It's good to
huh,
have different sizes,
that
because like for
is
instance,
I didn't think
I'm
about that.
planting in this farm like 1, 2, 3, and 5 gallon of like 10 different species. So then you'll have like the potential to have hybridization because some species are obviously going to be faster and some slower, but the
Right.
different sizes will allow at least some of them to line up on the years that they're going to be able to hybridize.
Our amigo Mike Dos X Uno says Steve, the man, the myth, the legend.
Thanks, Mike.
We got
Yeah.
Eduardo Lucas que dice, saca el mezcal. Amigo, ya lo
I
tengo,
wish.
ya estoy
Yeah, I gotta drive home
tomando.
still.
And then, well, I'm still working on that one, but yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, oh, okay. I was wondering that, like how these hybrids come about. So,
Yeah, and there's
okay.
even natural hybrids that are not in between just agave. Like there's another genus called Manfreda that's this whole other, type of plants, right? Separate to agave. And then they have natural hybrids between Manfreda and the agave species, like out in the wild. So, a lot of people, for instance, thought that the Americans created the Mangave kind of like, hybridization, but after a lot of research, they found out a lot of these were out in the wild, you know.
Mm.
So America's created a lot of hybrids in between Manfreda and agave, but
Mm.
you know, they're all basically in greenhouses being cross-pollinated, or you can also have hybridization like in the lab where you have two species in vitro together.
Okay. I'm gonna jump right into this question, which was like close to the tail end, but since we're talking about differences in agave, what is the difference between Daisylirion and Sotol?
Well, not really
Is
anything.
it
Yeah, I mean,
just the
Sotol is
name?
just a nickname for
Ah,
the Dacilarium.
okay.
And I mean, that's like where it's like good to know both the names though, because Sotol is like what a lot of the indigenous people is calling Dacilarion,
Yeah.
right? Like Dacilarion is a name that was given to the species by like some, European or American botanist, right? So,
Mm.
even with agave, Tequiliana, like, that was classified by like some French guy. So whoever went out in the wild and just discovered it usually is the person that classifies it and gets to name it.
Hell yeah. We got Tino Tajonan says, Steve, with the facts. Hell yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah, my bad. My bad. Those are the questions that were burning inside my soul, and I wanted to ask those to you right off the bat. But
Yeah, they're good questions. I mean, like I think about that a lot because like the eventual goal for like every farm that I work on is to like create a super agave in between all the agave species, right? So ideally in like, 1 or 2 generations after you've grown all these different species, you're hybridizing them and creating like a supreme species that's like localized to just, your farm.
mm,
So that's, my intention on my farm. And when I consult for people, I try to do that for them too. Because if you're doing that, not only do you create, new species, but they're your species, right? So
mm,
a lot of the hybrids that I've created, right? Like other people don't, if I never put them for sale, they'll never have them, right? So you have an ability to kind of monopolize a little bit of some genetics for you to just utilize, right? Um, because, for instance, say you take an Americana and you take Angustifolia and hybridize it, and you make this, unique agave. Even if someone took the same two types of agaves and made another one, the hybrid won't be the same. It's like two humans having a kid, right? It's like you can have another kid, but every kid's different. So every hybrid is very, very unique and localized, you know?
I'm just waiting for the El Stevo hybrid.
I mean, I have a lot of them. I just don't try to sell them, Like I want to tissue culture some of them and then patent them so then people can't uh, if you have a patent on an agave that you create, you could potentially like create sort of like what the denominations have, and kind of create your own whole norma for how this agave is used, right? So I've thought forever, of making certain agaves that I've made kind of under that because I always fear like putting it out and then all these people getting my agave and using it for shit. So or a bunch of stuff that I don't approve of. So if you
What in
patent it,
the
obviously you get
did
to
you just say
decide who uses it.
patent?
Yeah, there's a bunch of patents on different agaves in the United States that people have created. So I mean, a lot of the agaves that are grown by me, for instance, I could grow them for me in like my farm and like utilize them, but I can't grow a whole bunch of them and try to sell them because they have patents behind them. So you have to license actually from the patent owner cultivation of that agave, right? So you can't even grow certain agaves that people have created if you don't pay them royalty, right?
I'm just
And
imagining like somebody driving down the road, stopping, and then you see like this old grandma just watering her plants, and then the cop just being like, "You're an asshole. That's a patented plant." you know.
I mean, like the thing is, like I've never heard of like anybody misusing a mangava and them getting sued for it. But like, I mean, what could potentially happen is like you spend 20 years creating an agave species, right? Because it takes forever to get these guys, like
Yeah.
how we were saying, to line up. And then you put in all this work, and then someone just buys one agave from you, takes it to a lab, can tissue culture it and replicate it times a million. So that's what people fear and why I understand the patents. And you know you can only, this is where a lot of people also fear the patents, right? Because for instance, I hear a lot from Mexicans like, oh, they're going to patent wild agaves and stuff. And you can't patent any agave that you haven't created. So I can't just go out and like get some wild agave and then just say, hey, this is my agave and patent it, right? It has to be
Even if it's
something.
like truly wild, like if it's never been seen before.
Yeah, it's still, if it came from nature, it can't be patented. You know what I mean? So like you can only patent something that you've like newly created, right? So the majority of those patents are all hybrids basically because
So
it can't be
in
something that
the
can.
in the structure of like that makes this like custom or patented agave, is there like a chromosome that says like created by Steve, or like something that
Yeah,
these.
you have to show like its genetic uniqueness. That's why I was saying that it has to be something new because they could basically, like you say, you patented a wild, agave. They're just gonna like look at the genetic structure and compare it to other agaves and then see that, you're lying basically that it's not something new. So they'll deny your patent, you know. And there's been a lot of people that have tried to patent wild agaves and have, been denied for that. It's just like I said, only really uniquely new hybrids. And then, like, say you have a plant and then, like, just for whatever reason, it mutates, and then you have a pup that comes out that's completely new. I mean, you could potentially probably patent that if, like, it's never been, seen before. But, most people don't really do that because you don't know what else is out there. So people would already probably have created that, you know. So once again, you have to be the first person to create it. So if there ever was something out on the market of it, then you know, your patent would be worthless.
You know, I know we're just shotgunning this whole thing, but now that you tell me this, it's like it's the access to do these things, and like you don't need a forensic scientist to figure out that like Latinos don't have access to a lot of this stuff. So I like from a Latino standpoint, like I really appreciate what you're doing, and I hope to God that you have your own patent or your own name for an agave, because I mean that would make me
But
feel proud as a
I,
Chicano to be like,
yeah,
this
I've
isn't just
that's
some, you know what I'm
that's why
saying?
I say I want to patent it because I've created species before and told them to people, and they like just fucking tissue culture and mass sell it, and you know I don't agree with like what they're doing. You know, like I think tissue culture has its purpose. Like for instance, if there's like only, for instance, like agave shawi, right? Like there's only two wild populations left of it left in California, so it's like probably one of the most under threat species, and it's here native to California, right? So, I mean, if you want a tissue culture agave shawi, great, you know, but the problem with tissue culture is you're essentially going to run into the problem with agave tequiliana and the clones.
Mm,
So they're all identical, right? And the ideal thing would be to take all those, for instance, with agave shawi, all those tissue cultured plants, plant them out and get the seed, and then have all these different new stuff coming out from the seed, right? But to boost the population quickly, yeah, tissue culture could be helpful, but it also destroys the genetic like diversity of a species if it's misused. So
mm,
I don't like how my agaves were misused by the people I sold them to. And for instance, if I create an agave, like it could be extremely valuable to sell it to someone, right? So that was the attractive part. But then I'm like, well, I didn't really care about the money after I saw like how they, you know, used it. So now going forward, I haven't released any species because I'm just like, I'd rather wait
damn,
until I can patent them.
that's cool. That's
Yeah, I don't
cool.
want people to fuck it up. So
We got some
yeah,
networking going on. Dino Tajona says, I know someone doing tissue culture and genetic banking, Steve. Let me know when you're ready.
yeah. I know some people that have offered to help me with that, you know, and there's some cool tissue culture people here in California. So I mean, like you can take your agaves that are unique genetics to like any of these tissue culture labs, and then you know you just sign a contract with them that they don't basically just jack your genetics, and it's a common it's a common thing that occurs, right? So like
Mhm.
a lot of people that create these agaves go to the tissue culture banks, but I just you know I don't really see a need for it right now. It's like yeah, it's just kind of cool to have a plant that nobody has, you know? Like I kind of don't want to replicate it right now, some of them. And
It's
uh
red. The whole plant is red.
it's like, you know, I like my friend was like it's like kind of like having like a Ferrari that nobody has, you know? It's like
Mm,
you have this agave that nobody has and can't have because you created it. So
mm,
um I look at some of the agaves in my collection and I'm just like, damn, that shit's hot. Like I don't want people to have that, you know?
man. Okay, okay. All right, we got Mike dos XX1 says under certain agricultural aspects of what is around the plant, how much of the plant affects the taste profile?
Let's see. It could be a lot, man. I mean, because you know, all the plants essentially like people kind of confuse that like, you know, plants absorb like nutrients and stuff. Like, I mean, it's not so simple like that. They really are like exchanging a lot of their sugars and stuff that they create with like soil, you know, micro biome, and then that soil microbiome is taking all those, you know, things out of the soil, like those nutrients, and giving it to the plant, right? So anything that affects the soil and you know where that agave is growing is going to have a huge effect. So, for instance, like I grow Palo Verde trees, and like, I'm starting to put in some small mesquite trees next to my agave and cactus, and I don't have to fertilize those plants anymore because these are trees that are called legumes, and they naturally nitrogen fixate, right? So they create these bacteria in the soil that can, put that out into the soil for that agave to utilize, right? So that's definitely going to change the flavor of that agave because you're basically fertilizing it, right? And the same thing, any ground cover plants that you have around. So I try to
Mm.
have a lot of the natives stay with my agaves there, right? So a lot of the flavors that are in those plants and smells end up, coming out in a lot of the agave plants too when you eat them. Less of that when you distill or make a wine from it, but when you eat it, definitely like it's almost like you're tasting like the ground cover. It's a little weird. And then, oak trees, like all these uh, pine trees, like almost every tree creates a different soil kind of relationship that will affect that agave. That's why I love growing a bunch of different ones with my agaves. Um,
Mm.
so the plants definitely affect the flavor profile,
Even if
more so, like I
it
said,
were
when
like a
they're
seasonal
eating
plant,
it.
like a California poppy.
Yeah, because it's changing the soil profile. So a lot of those
Okay.
those seasonal plants, um, they're quick growing, and then they're there for a purpose in nature, right? So a lot of the poppies, the phacelias, the gold fields, like all these ground covers that kind of just take over, whole landscapes. When they come out in those landscapes, they're like locking in all these nutrients into the soil. You know what I
Mm.
mean? So when they are now gone, that's available to all of the plants that are there permanently, like some of the bushes, or if you're growing agave and cactus there, right? So once again, that's where the ground covers come in a lot because most people try to mow them down and stuff, and then that soil buildup isn't allowed. You know, that's why I'm not a huge fan of like crimping or tilling or really any messing with the soil because
Mm.
um, the soil is like the most important thing on your farm. You know what I mean? Like the more that you disturb that soil, the less like productive and efficient it's going to be for you. So, I mean, I honestly on agave farms, I really don't even see a use for like heavy machinery except for in harvesting.
Very, very cool. Okay. I'm gonna try to grow my poppies next to my agave. All right.
Yeah.
Question here. Why can't I get pulque from Espadín or Jabalí? Why is it only from Salmiana, Pulquero?
I mean, you can definitely get pulque from a lot of those larger
Oh,
agaves. You know what I mean?
wow. I
A
didn't
lot
know
of people
that.
just, yeah, they don't
What?
utilize them because they're just smaller agaves.
Mm.
So a lot of the time, if you're harvesting pulque or agua miel from like a giant salmiana or americana, and you're thinking about a liter each time, well, I mean, with a tequiliano or espadini, you only might be looking at a third of a liter or something. So it just is not as efficient. So people don't utilize it for that really at all. But I
Mm.
mean, really, any large agave you can pretty much make bulk out of, and agave wine as well. Um, so I mean, it just once again, a lot of the times it just people haven't done it, so they kind of just think it's like impossible type shit. But um, definitely not. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna marry these two worlds here. Uh, this is Planet Mezcal. You are our agave expert. So, does the agave expert like mezcal? If so, what are some of your go-to brands
For what? For agave?
to drink?
Oh, it's a drink. I mean, I don't know, like in mezcal or tequila.
Mezcal, purely just mezcal.
Um, I mean, I haven't really, drank too much mezcal lately, to be honest, to like, give good reviews on brands. Um, I mean the Tepanal is really good. You know, that's one that like they make both really really good. So I just fuck with like everything that they make. You know, for the most part. And
I
yeah, they make
think El
good stuff.
Amigo Jair is actually watching. Jair's one of the co-owners here at Tepanal. So shout out to Tepanal.
Yeah, I love like a lot of their stuff because you know they're not filtering it like a lot of it, you know, because you know a lot of that tequila that they're making or mezcal is coming out at like you know 45, 55%, but then you know they down it for us, you know, for the Americans
Yeah.
or the American market. So I like that they don't, you know, like uh filter their shit down for us, you know, and they're giving it to us how they taste it, and like that's a good thing for us, but I say like I admire it because it's more costly for them and they're making less money. You know what I mean? Probably like shipping that into the US,
I
they're
see.
paying higher
Right.
taxes. So, you know, they're more doing it not because it's more profitable, but because they know the people want it and love that, right?
Yep.
So I love when brands do shit like that. Like a lot of the times, you know, I'll do experiments and just like you know, I'll blow a bunch of money on planting these agaves, and I'm just like, I'm just gonna see if they live, and if they don't, it's cool. But I learn, you know, and then I'm more than happy to share a lot of those experiments with people. But I feel like the brands that experiment a lot and spend their own money to do that, you know, not looking for so much profit, like that's you know an honorable thing to do. So. Uh,
What's dope is I have like a little bottle of theirs that's just pure puntas. That's like
I
75%, bro. Like
oh
it
yeah,
burns your tongue.
I've been telling everybody though forever that like why does nobody bring out puntas? You know what I
Mm,
mean? I'm like nobody brings out yeah, everyone's just because it's like a really bitter taste, but people like me like that, you know, like a lot of the best mezcales and tequilas that I like are or the best mezcales I mean are really high in saponins, you know, like the jabalís. So
mm,
that bitter taste is like a lot of people love it, you know.
absolutely. We got a question here. Julio asks, can you make an agave grow 200 plus, what's that, kilograms? Modifying it.
I mean, there's agaves that grow 200 kilograms without modification right now, you
Mm,
know? Like a lot of the Americanas and Salmianas and, you know, you got Mapisagas and, yeah, like even the Weberries, they get gigantic, you know? Um, uh, but if you're looking to, like, for instance, get a pina size larger from an agave, then you know you want to hybridize it with something that's a giant pina. So I mean, I've said forever, like you know, I want to get people that are hybridizing utensis, which is one of the most that people in California are messing with, at least on the collector side.
mm,
Like they've hybridized it with like different Titanotas and Paris and you know all these different like cool collector agave to try to get these cool looks. But I'm
mhm.
like, dude, like somebody fucking cross it with an Americana, please already, because Americanas are blooming all over California. So if these collectors are growing agave utensis and they get some blooms, go fucking over to some of these Americanas and cross pollinate it because you know the agave utensis distillate is probably one of my favorites, and like it's impossible to fucking get any of these agaves. You know, like
Mm.
every time I get a few of them that are mature enough to distill, it's like you're probably making one or two bottles because the pinas are only like 7 or 8 pounds. So I'm like, cross it with an Americana that gets you, you know, a 400 or 500 pound pina, and maybe you can get some of those agave utensis flavors in, you know, a 200 pound pina or a 300 pound pina, right? So,
Low
yeah,
key. It sounds like you're speaking from experience.
yeah. I mean,
Like
yeah,
you
I mean,
may have a half a bottle laying around.
yeah, I mean, I got some stuff, you know, buried in the desert somewhere, man.
Very
So,
good.
yeah,
Very,
always got to have a little bit, you know, handy.
amigo, the other day I was looking up this thing. I don't know what the hell it is. Maybe you can tell us here. What is California AB 2606?
Did you read that?
I was looking into it. I needed the agave expert to translate it in English because it was
It's like all legal jargon.
So for the viewers, for people watching, can you let us know what is CAAB 2606?
It's just a law that, was passed in California. It was signed, like over, I don't remember if it was like New Year's or in January, but in the new wave of bills that Newsom signed, it was included in that. And then it was just a bill that a lot of people were just kind of really surprised by, right? So a lot of people didn't even know that it existed until it passed, which, is a problem, I believe,
And what
in
is this
government.
that you're referring to for the viewers that might not have any clue what you just are talking about?
What do you mean?
What is the CA the 2606? Like, what is that? How does that pertain to
Oh, so I
agaves or
mean, it's called
distilling?
the California Agave Commission bill. So that's pretty
Okay.
much what the bill is, right? So they, are like the law that was passed essentially just says that whenever, the proponents of the bill, which is, the California Agave Council, whenever they decide that, they're ready for a vote, that a vote will be held, and based on the, decision of that vote, then a California Agave Commission could be created, right? And then that whole bill is essentially just outlining the whole, voting procedures and what the Agave Commission's roles, would be. Um, but yeah, like I said, it's just it was really surprising for people because at least when I found out about it, it had been already in the assembly for like 7 months, right? So, I mean, I'm a pretty fast mover, and we were able to get through some connections and stuff, letters in front of the governor, and really show him why we thought that this law was burnt. But the point is, we
Is it
really knew
just
about.
another way for taxing farmers, or what is this for? Like, why do people? What's it? What's the
Well,
purpose?
well, yeah, I'm getting to it. It just like I said, it was something that was brought up against us, and then we couldn't really fight it or do much against it because it was a surprise, right? So, I mean, we were really like a lot of agave farmers in California and different people were really pissed off about it because it essentially is trying to create a commission, which is going to be able to tax growers, and a lot of the commissions kind of just purpose is supposed to be for marketing and research, but just really looking at how it's just set up and everything, it looks like a lot of the money really is going to be spent in like setting up this basically bureaucracy. Like there's not going to really be much money for research or development or marketing. And as a historian and a consultant that works for farmers, like I've had a lot of different issues with like just about every commission you can name in California. So when I heard that California wanted, or the California Agave Council was working on a commission for our industry, I was really alarmed because I was like, I've worked with the growers commission. I've worked with different nut commissions and fruit commissions, and they're really a huge problem in California. And when people ask themselves like, why is big agriculture so consolidated in California? Why is a lot of it a monoculture, ecological destruction, and a lot of it has to do with these commissions because they place like really burdensome taxes on people, right? And these taxes kind of force people to grow the fastest species, the species that everybody's kind of, growing so that there's not a lot of risk. And then, they don't stray too far from, what everyone else is doing. And what ends up happening a lot of the times in these different industries is that those commissions basically are taxing these small farmers, and a lot of the research is just basically like monoculture, and just it is a lot of research aimed towards big farmers. So they're utilizing it, but the small farmer is still over here doing his own thing. So
Mm.
the majority of the farmers that I've worked with, like on the smaller sides, working with the commissions, they all complain that, like, the marketing isn't for them, all the research isn't for them, and they're just paying taxes and having to market and research on their own, a bunch of their own shit. So they're like, I wish I could just keep my money and dedicate it for me instead of paying it to these guys, right? And
To work
that's
on your
across
art
the
and your
board.
crafts versus
Yeah,
just like try to do one
and and
plant. Like you want to explore and
and
do other things.
totally. And now bringing it back to agave, it's like, I think it's really stupid to tax me, for instance, for research and marketing, because it's like I had a video where I did a meme about tequila, right? And tariffs. And this video got, like, I don't know, like 1.5 or 2 million views. And, that videos are like that. Some, they just get a couple hundred views, and, some just fucking go viral. And this video, based off the DMs and based off the sales and, everything from this video, uh, in agave and cactus and different stuff that I sell, I probably made like $45,000. And I was just like, damn, like that, for me, I'm like, I don't need your marketing when I can sell out everything that I do for a free video that I create, or for, I could do that for my client. And I mean, you're very familiar with this side of stuff, in marketing. And it's just like, I'm like, at the end of the day, I know I could outsell all my shit, for very low cost or almost free. And I feel paying taxes into something that, is going to kind of help the big guys market, almost makes me look bad, because I'm over here growing like this super diverse, paradise of a bunch of different trees and cacti and agave species. And then when we go to joint market, right, in this pool of money, they're going to assume that that a small farm like me is like these big guys, the stuff that everybody is seeing. And the same thing, they're kind of, greenwashing a bit, because they're these giant farms getting to say, hey, we're like these little guys. So everyone, I believe, needs to be marketing on their own basis, like, because it kind of doesn't make sense to do a joint thing because everybody's so unique. And then on the research side, dude, I mean, to be honest with you, I've read like 700, articles on just agave, probably like within the past like year or two, and this is something that for a decade I've just been researching and researching. And I don't know if you're familiar with a lot of the knowledge banks, or the, stuff like JSTOR and all that stuff that you get through college, right? But I mean, usually, like at UCSB, they would give us all these data banks, essentially, that the university paid for, and then you could go into it, and they had like all these research papers from, that aren't sometimes publicly available. But
Oh,
the
like the
point
fancy
is,
Google Scholar, right?
yeah, it's like their own version. Every university has like their own
Oh,
version of Google Scholar, where
I
like
see.
they have all their own
Yeah.
research on it, right? So through the UC system and through a lot of, the ones that I would pay for, I'm just like, dude, there's unlimited fucking research. So reading a lot of this research on energy and biofuels and textiles, and what people were creating food products out of it, and different distillates, I came to the realization we're way past the fucking research stage, because I started talking to a lot of my homies in India and stuff, and they're over here creating methane out of agave. I'm talking to my African homies, and they're making a whole bunch of like really expensive high fashion with agave. And different people, in Mexico are making like, really unique distillates with the agave, right? So my point is, a lot of the shit that they say they want to research, like, we've already kind of crossed that point. Like, most of the world already is creating the products that research was for. So, for instance, like, if you want to research biofuels, it's kind of a waste of time when you can go directly talk to the people creating the fucking biofuels. You know what I mean? Like you can go and get some of these people from India or Brazil or Mexico that have created, ethanol based or methane based agave biofuels, and fucking bring them over here. I mean, to me, it's just a waste of money and potential, right? Because I give you even another example. Like, I had a biodigester that burned down at my home in Altadena, and I had that at my farm for a while. And I was putting, you know, my goat manure in there, my agave and cactus, grind it up, doing the same shit that my Indian homies were doing in India, right? And I learned that from them, right? What the hell even a biodigester was. Dude, I was running my whole cooking off of that, my heating off of that, off of agave and goat poop. So I was creating my own fucking biomethane on the farm already. Like my point is, fuck the research. We're way past that already. We need to actually be creating products and making stuff. And I see a waste of time to be, oh yeah, let me give you a bunch of money to research this, you know? If we all want to come together and be like, yeah, let's make a California based, agave biofuel, I'll pitch into that, but I'm not gonna pitch into some random ass shit that, some board decides what they research. So I'd rather it be a collaborative, voluntary thing, right? Because I mean, for instance, a lot of these big farmers that are getting into this, it doesn't take more than, 50 or $100,000 in a few experiments to already start making the products that they say they want to fucking research. So, I don't see any use to paying taxes, to be honest with you. Like all the farmers that I'm working with right now, obviously when I consult with them and I bring them into agave farming, I talk about California AB 2606 with them, and the majority of farmers in California are conservative, to be honest with you. So they're all kind of just like, oh, fuck this, added regulation. Like many of them are out of state and like I manage their farms, right? And they're just like, we'll just silage everything and fucking move whatever we can move to another state. Like we're not going to pay added regulation or taxes. We'll just grow cactus or fruit trees or some of the other shit that you grow, Steve. And I'm like, I'm with you, man. Like, one of the farmers that I used to consult for here on the coast of California, she moved to Arizona, and I followed with her, bro. I bought some land in Arizona, and I'm like her little neighbor there, growing a couple of agave. And it's just like,
That's
entrepreneurs.
horrible though, because
Yeah, I mean,
that's
but
horrible for,
but look,
for
as an
for
entrepreneur,
Californians and like people like of political power to push away entrepreneurs
well,
and,
we
and
have to
people that are
innovate.
passionate about
Everybody
agave.
tells me, bro, you're doing all this cool innovation and stuff. And I'm like, well, I can only do that because California doesn't have this bullshit regulation that Mexico has. That's why I chose to come here, bro. And now, they're forcing me to move again. Like,
Mm.
I have family that's growing agave tequiliana in Jalisco. I could have started a tequila fucking brand there. And I chose to do this in California because I didn't want to be under the CRT or the CRM or any of those motherfuckers. I said, I'm going to be in California where I can make my own spirits with a whole bunch of different agaves, hybrids, and different shit that Mexico doesn't even mess with. But these guys are trying to just be a copycat of Jalisco and just consolidate shit, and I'm not about that. So I'd rather just move to Arizona, the agave production, and keep the other stuff here. You get me? Because that allows me to continue to be unique and innovating, and not, like for instance, people tell me like I was gonna plant 200 acres, of agave, and I just decided, fuck that, I'm just gonna sell all this agave. So like in the past like 3 months, I've sold like up to like 148,000 agave now. And that was going to be agave that I was going to plant in California. I had already the land cleared. I was going to put 180 acres and another piece of 20 that I just cleared. That was going to be the 200. And I said, fuck that. I'd rather just give it to other farmers because, the regulation that's coming is unclear. So I'm not going to invest a bunch of money in California and then get fucked in 3 years. And a lot of my farmers are with me on that. And that is sad. I agree with you, but as an entrepreneur, I don't get bummed out. Like I'm gonna move wherever I need to make shit happen. You know, um, like I said, like I love California. I love living here, so I'll continue growing cactus, and I can still make cactus spirits and wine, and a whole bunch of different stuff with all the fruits that I grow. So I don't get bummed
Maybe
out. It just sucks for California because then they are losing farmers. Like that's not the only lady that's moved and me. Like we're two people, but besides us two, there's 7 other farmers I know that I've consulted for that have left California already. And
Bad
once again,
joke.
just
I
the
got a
agave,
bad joke.
not the
Maybe,
rest of
maybe,
their shit.
maybe these bad joke incoming. Maybe these politicians are trying to like choke out these California agave farmers because they love mezcal from Oaxaca so much, and they want to
Well,
keep Oaxaca as the player.
but that's what I tell people. I'm like, look, man, like the only way California agave spirits is something that I support is us being like something fucking unique, right?
Right.
Like if everybody,
Yeah.
99% of mezcal is espadín, and obviously the all of tequila is tequiliana. Those are just one species, actually. They're both angustifolias. So it's like over here, I'm growing a cold hardy angustifolia, and I have like a dozen other types of angustifolias. And my point is, I'm just like, you can get similar flavors and still make something super unique because, say these different angustifolias that Mexicans don't use, I'm using them here because they've been created or bred in California, right? And then I grow these out. That might be something that a Mexican wants on their fucking bar. But if we create an Espadín and a Tequiliana agave spirit, and even if we do it by the millions, not only will it be more expensive and people will not want to buy it because of that, but who would want to buy a copycat? You get me? Like when I buy some fancy fucking wine and I throw a celebration, I don't go buy some fucking sparkling wine. I go buy champagne, bro. What the fuck?
There's nothing
I buy
wrong
the
with
good
sparkling
shit,
wine,
you
though,
know?
ladies and
Like,
gentlemen.
hey, I work for some of those farmers. I love me some sparkling wine, but you get me? You're not gonna buy California agave spirit tequiliana. You're gonna go buy the fucking tequila or the mezcal, dude.
Right, right.
So it's like, and it'll be cheaper and higher quality. So it's like, it's idiotic to me to kind of force these taxes and,
Yeah.
and kind of make all these farmers get into this box because then they're going to want to grow the fastest species, which is going to be Espadín and Tequiliana, and we're going to be an exact copy of Jalisco and fucking Oaxaca and these other states. And then, that's where a lot of the Mexicans that call us biopirates and cultural appropriators, I agree with them. Like, if that's what California becomes, then yeah, we fucked up. We completely fucked up. We appropriated you. My bad.
Mhm.
Because I'll tell you what, some of these big farmers in Napa and stuff that I work with, I could see in 15, 20 years after one or two generations, they could be growing, for instance, a few $1 billion worth of agave spirits coming out of California. And then I tell myself, okay, well, if like for instance, $10 billion worth of mezcal and tequila comes into California today, right, or into the USA today. Say in 15, 20 years, California is producing 20 billion agave spirits. Even if they're shit quality, they're the majority of the market. That dilutes the fucking brand of mezcal and tequila. So I've even told people in Mexico, I'm like, this is some shit that should piss you off too, because it's gonna dilute your guys' brands when California over here is doing the shit that you guys are doing. If they're doing Utahenses, Shawi, Americanas, these things that a lot of the Mexicans aren't even messing with, then that's not going to compete because it's going to be its own different shelf, right? It's going to be its own unique stuff. But if we do the same shit they do, it's gonna, mess with them. I mean, that's why, I kind of get a little ticked off too, because I'm like, they're essentially trying to take out, my family and like a lot of people, by creating the industry. So it's not something that I only fight for me here in California, but I'm like, I fight it for the Mexicans that are in fucking over there doing their own thing and they don't even know about this because their brands are going to get screwed and they don't even know about it, and most of
So
them don't
here's
even
where
know
I
about
kind of have
it.
like an issue. I know we're still early on with the distilled agave spirits. I
Yeah.
went to a few liquor stores, and I was looking at the mezcal prices. Like 80, 100, 110, etc. And then
Big
this
baller, dude.
And then this guy, pulls out like this distilled agave bottle, and he's like, "Oh, this was raised and distilled here in California." And I'm like, "Oh, this, probably gonna be a cool little deal." That thing was like $200, and it was like just
Well, yeah,
one like. one species, and I'm like,
Yeah, I mean,
mm,
that's the thing. Once
mm,
again, we can't be copying Mexico. You know what I mean? Like, I give you an example, right? Like, a lot of the roasting that I've seen for these agave spirits in California, they're using the same mezcal-based pits to roast their shit, right? So they're taking a bunch of days or sometimes a week or two or whatever, right? Like the Oaxacans or the Pueblans or whatever people that are making mezcal are, right? So they're copying that method, right? Whereas when I built my pit, dude, I can roast agave, like I can roast 3 tons of agave in 2.5 hours. I
a
mean,
lot of work.
I'm not worrying about that shit taking 2 weeks, and my point is in California, you need to innovate. You need to do your own unique way of making a fire pit or a fire oven or whatever, because we can't take 2 weeks. Shit takes too much money and time costs money in California. So, we have to do stuff completely differently to what they're doing. You get me? Once again, it's like, if we're growing agave tequiliana, you're going to need to fertilize it heavy. You need to irrigate it heavy because where I live in Jalisco, it rains 20, 30 inches a year, man. So we dry farm it. But in California, you're not going to be able to dry farm that. You're going to need at least 6 to even sometimes 10 inches of rain and or of irrigation. And then you get how I'm saying, where if we copy their species, we're going to now have all these inputs. Now I'll give you an example. I'm growing a lot of different USA native species that don't require irrigation if I plant them in the rainy season, and they're established and can grow with no water. So and I don't need to fertilize them in a chemical or a bunch of these ways that they're using that cost them money or a lot of money, right? So yeah, once again, we shouldn't be copying the species that they use, because using them here are going to make a lot, a lot of issues that are in Mexico. They're going to be worse here.
Jesus. And you mentioned time, and we're talking about agave. So, a question I've got for you is, for those people that are curious about growing agave, does the agave seed germination stage take a long time?
Germination, no. I mean, it could take a few days, but like the germination is for that seed to pop. So I mean, I start a lot of my seed on paper towels, and I'll just spray them with like a water bottle sprayer, and a lot of that stuff can come out even overnight or in 2, 3 days. And then you can take those little germinated seeds and put them inside of different small containers, like with coconut or different soil mixes, and you got your agave going. But for that to get to an agave that you want to put out in the fucking field is probably like a year and a half or 2 years. So that's why a lot of the farms that are created are from pups, because a pup can be sometimes shooting out in within 3 months is at a size that you can go replant somewhere, right? And you're not going to get that with seeds. But the advantage with seeds is going to be that every single one of those agaves is different, right? Whereas every single one of the agaves that's from Mijuelo is a clone. So I personally try to like sell a lot of my clones to other farms. Like I kind of give them, for lack of description, the shitty genetics, and I keep the stuff that I recycle in the seed stuff, because I'm like for instance, if you look at my Americanas, those Americanas came from like 40 different places. You know what I mean? So if I start keeping all the clones, I'm just gonna have clones of all those different ones, right? Whereas I just want to get a whole bunch of new ones coming out from seed and stuff like that, or different ones that I collect from a new area. So, for instance, I don't really deal with any plagues or anything like that on my farm, because most of the stuff is all different genetics, right? Like I give an example. If one of my cacti or agave gets a plague, that agave will die, but it's never the case that there's the same agave or plant right next to it that is that plague agave, right? Because there's so much diversity. So the plague never spreads, right? So I see a plant die because of the plague. I don't spray any chemicals or nothing. I'm just like, whatever it died, I take one out of my greenhouse and I go plant it. But imagine if you get a plague and everything's a monoculture, then it just spreads throughout the whole field like wildfire, right? Because everything's the same. So that's why you just have to have so much genetic diversity that it's like I try to tell people, think of the farm almost like a garden or a forest or, an ecosystem, because you want to have a little bit of everything. The natives, the ground cover, the agave and cacti are ground covers as well. But, the trees even that I plant are different tiered trees to try to create, different levels of forest here in the desert, right? Because um, eventually a lot of those trees are feeding my animals or creating little microclimates for those agaves to grow better. So like wherever, I have trees, I know that in the summer those agaves are going to be shaded, and I have to irrigate way less and they grow better.
Amigo, as we're winding down, I got a really important question for you.
What's up, dude?
How are you honoring Mexican agave tradition while becoming a trailblazer in California?
Yeah, that's always like a balance I like try to work on, because it's like I'm trying to do what my grandpa did, and like, what a lot of the indigenous folks in agave in Mexico do, which again are like the 1%. Like we on social media see a lot of them because that's the people that we like. But when you look at Mexico, the people that we like are like the 1%, dude. So like, even probably 1%, 1% if we're being honest, right? So when I look at my stuff, I'm like, well, I want to do what my grandpa did, have all these diverse species, trees, shrubs growing in tandem in this, really functional kind of permaculture ecosystem, where I don't use any chemicals or any heavy machinery or any tillage. And, I bring that to California definitely. And I've done that since the beginning. Like I probably was the first polyculture farmer in California doing regenerative at that, when I started. And the the thing that I strike a balance, or what I was saying, it's hard to strike a balance, is like, I also want to create all these new species and utilize those species. And like, my grandpa really only focused on like probably a dozen species. So that were native to Jalisco, right? So I'm growing stuff from the USA. Like I have a bunch of stuff that's, bred and created in different countries like Japan and Italy. And I've brought those agaves to the United States. And, I have
So hold on,
agaves from
did you
all
just
over
say
the
agave
world
from
and stuff.
Japan?
So, yeah, the Japanese are probably like the most craziest hybridizers I've seen.
What?
Besides us in California, honestly, we're like the number one. But if I had to say like who's the number two in the world of hybridizing and creating new agaves and all types of cool shit, yeah, the Japanese, man. Like I've got like 10 Japanese agaves that
What?
are created in Japan, and they're not available in America if you don't order it from
You
them.
have got to show me some pictures offline, bro. What?
Yeah, the Japanese
No
love like spines
way.
and stuff. So all the shit, all the stuff that they make are like really, really spiny agave, and they love really colorful stuff. But they just love funky stuff. That's why I dig the plants that they make. But yeah, like the what I was getting to is just like I want to like do all this innovation, but then keep it still doing, what my family was doing at the basis, right? So. It's
Mhm.
I try to say it's like a 50-50 type of thing, where I have to like be my own person doing my own thing so that I even respect them. Because if I were to do exactly what my family was doing in Jalisco, I would even see that, in California, I would see that as a disrespect to them, because
Mhm.
um, it just is not what should be done here, right? So
Mhm.
I try to take what I do through a new kind of avenue. I try not to step on the toes of like my own family or anybody that's in Mexico growing agave, right? So I try to choose stuff that nobody really is even working with. And um the agave that I grow the most and have the most of, which is agave Mariana, like a lot of that agave, you know when I first started growing it, it was native to Jalisco. I was like, this is a dope agave. I'm gonna start growing it. I found a few of them here, and I asked people about it in Mexico if you could distill it like from my hometown, because it was native there, and everybody was like, this shit's impossible. And then yeah, like I found out a way to distill it here in California, and then I was showing people in Jalisco like some of the stuff that I was doing, and they got so excited that they like ordered some of my Vilmorianas, you know. So like essentially like the Vilmorianas that were wild around my hometown became blue agave tequiliana fields. Like they started taking out all the native and you know, not only those agave but the trees and shrubs and stuff. So then I almost had to ship the agave that were native to Jalisco back to Jalisco because they were not in that town anymore. And then now they're growing them for the intention of spirits again. So my point is, like, a lot of that knowledge is even lost. You know, that uh the use of those agaves where they're native from. It's fucked up. So like by showing them again, like, no, you can utilize this in this way, then they want to utilize it again. So now people are growing that where it should be grown, whereas where it's native from, right? So I think that's dope too, and yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff happening in agave for sure on that end.
Damn. That's a great way to end it, but we've still got a lot of viewers, so be sure to hit that drop down menu and follow Steve and follow Planet Mescal. We try to do a chat every month or so. And if you have any rapid fire questions for Steve, drop them in the chat right now. I got one more question for you, Steve. This is going to be a tough one. Are you ready for this tough question?
So man,
It's earth shattering. If you could drink mezcal with a superhero, who would it be and why?
superhero man. I mean, probably the Flash, dude. I mean, the Flash is pretty dope. Because I always think like I wish I could just plant uh so much shit, you know, like I always wish there was like three or four of me. You know what I mean? So I feel like if I was chilling with Flash and I could get him to help me plant some agaves, that'd be chill, you know? Get him wasted on some tequila and yo man, knock this out real quick for me, you know? And I'll get you some new stuff.
I mean, well, if you're thinking about it like that, why not poison ivy?
I mean, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of cool superheroes, you know, definitely. I mean, Flash is just one of my favorite ones, you know. Um,
Mm.
yeah, probably, yeah. There's a bunch of crazy ones. Yeah,
Agave Americano says Flash can't get drunk. I assume because he burns the calories super fast.
probably. I don't know. Yeah,
Oh, oh, oh,
somebody
what?
said if
Oh, we got a. Oh man. Okay, we got our amigo here. Let's bring him on. He's actually a farmer, not too far from here. Are you down for a sudden surprise here,
go for it, dude. What's up?
amigo?
Hey, what's going on?
What's going on, man?
Hey,
How
what's
you
up, bro?
doing?
There's not much, man.
Hell yeah, we're excited to see to visit your agave farm soon.
I'm excited too, man.
Hell yeah.
It's the plants are still a little small, nothing too big. We got la plaga, the
Mm,
grasshoppers, and then early this year we got the frost.
mm.
So it's consistent, nonstop. But hey,
Oh man.
How
there
it is.
las apodamos, a little bit of love. You know what I mean? And we're thriving now. Hopefully, gonna I'm thinking maybe this week or next week do some whenever I got time, maybe during the week, go up there and do a little fertilizing and stuff. That way, before the heat hits them, Pakistan.
Yeah, it's about to start getting hot.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, Steve, this is our amigo Marco. Marco lives about 45 minutes north of Sacramento. And yeah, Marco, do you have any questions for Steve
Where's
or Steve,
No,
vice versa?
man.
what city?
I like.
Which town are you up in?
I'm in well, I'm locally live in Sacramento, but my farm is up in the up above Marysville, between Marysville and Orville. There's a bunch of orchids out there.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a cool spot.
yeah, man. It's not bad. I like it. It's country.
Hmm. Yeah,
It's
I mean,
it's
I
it's
love,
best.
you know,
People leave you
NorCal,
alone.
man. NorCal's the spot.
Yeah, man. But I've seen your post. You got some good knowledge, man. I think we spoke on the phone before.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know if you
I remember.
remember.
Yeah, man, I gotta come up one day and do a tour of your farm too, man. That's what's
Yeah,
up.
man.
Get him out there and
You
take
know,
some content.
yeah, I just planted 250 of espadín.
Espadín.
Man,
Hopefully,
Oh wow.
yeah, hopefully, I want to plant more, but they get a little bit pricey as you're starting off.
I can
mhm.
imagine. I assume.
Expenses
Yeah.
and whatnot. So it's like,
Yeah, I sell a lot of agaves, so I definitely know how hard it could be for farmers to, always be getting plants at prices they want. That's why it's good
hopefully,
to order from.
Oh,
yeah.
looks like we're losing them. See, looks like we're losing them here. Uh, uh let's see.
And he's gone.
Well, Steve, thanks so much again for jumping on. This was great. This was insightful. As you can see, I'm learning more each and every time about agaves because of you. So, thank you so much for being a champion of agave, a champion in distilled spirits. And if you have any questions for Steve, be sure to follow him, shoot him a DM, and we'll chat soon.
Yeah, man, hit me up anytime. Let me get one of them agave recipients, man.
We're gonna trade. We'll talk offline. I might need one of those
All right, man.
Japanese agave.